In our very first story, Food Sovereignty Ghana is a food advocacy movement which has been key in the fight against the introduction of genetically modified foods in Ghana. Now, they are opposed to Dr. Afriyie Akoto's nomination as Agric minister. Now, the group says Dr. Akoto performed poorly as a minority spokesperson on the Food and Agriculture Committee by collapsing the Agric sector through poor policies and excessive importation of food products. On the other hand, the Ghana Agriculture Chamber of Commerce and the Ghana Agricultural Workers Union, GAU, are lauding President Akufo-Addo's nomination of Dr. Afriyie Akoto as Agric Minister. Now, we will be speaking via Skype to President of the Ghana Agriculture Chamber of Commerce, Philip Hayford, and via phone to General Secretary of GAU. But first, let's find out from Food Sovereignty Ghana details of their position. And Edwin Kweku Ando Bafo is the Communications Director of Food Sovereignty Ghana, and he'll be telling us more. Like I mentioned, we'll also be speaking via Skype to Philip Hayford. He's the President of the Ghana Agric Chamber of Commerce. Now, good morning, Edwin.
Good morning, Bernice.
Thank you so much for coming. I'm very fine, thank you. Now, what exactly is your concern? Now, you claim that Dr. Afriyie Akoto performed poorly as a minority spokesperson on the Committee on Food and Agric. What exactly are your margins for rating his performance as poor?
Thank you very much, and good morning to your audience. You know, Food Sovereignty Ghana we've maintained our principal position against the introduction of genetically modified organisms into this country based on the fact that, first of all and foremost, there's no consensus among the scientific community globally on the safety of genetically modified organisms. So we need to get that thing very straight. There is no consensus among the scientific community. And this is important because genetically modified foods and genetically modified organisms are not naturally occurring. So they are manufactured in a lab. So if there's no global consensus on their safety from the community of scientists, that already is a red flag. Now, international protocols that Ghana has signed to and agreed to follow their protocols, like the Cartagena Protocol on Biosafety, specifically states that if countries to introduce genetically modified organisms into the environment, there must be extensive stakeholder engagement, there must be extensive education, because after all, you're talking about food, and food is a basic issue in every society. So, Honorable Akoto say, also Afriyie Akoto we're not opposed to him because of his person at all. We are just in principle opposed to the fact that he was the minority spokesperson on agriculture throughout the Mahama regime. Food Sovereignty Ghana had tried to engage Parliament on several occasions, had written to all political parties and indeed a wide range of stakeholders on this issue, and we never heard anything from his quarters.
So for you, it's the issue of GMOs, and
it is the issue that he's shown impartiality to his position on GMO. In fact, in an earlier recording on TV3 News Day, a New Day program about 2014, he specifically stated that, and in defense of GMO, that, well, GMOs have been eaten in the United States for the last 28 years, and in his own words, they are not dying, and we've been importing GMOs into our ports for several years, and Ghanaians are not dying. So this is his position on it, and we find that a little basic as far as looking at an issue as food security and the fact that there is no scientific consensus on the long-term safety. And it's also been very clear from different reports, including the United Nations last report on sustainable development, that the world cannot continue to do this form of large-scale commercial agriculture, which is heavily dependent on chemicals and heavily dependent on energy inputs. So they're recommending that the world must go back to agroecological practices.
All right, Edwin, so let's say today Dr. Akoto comes out to say, okay, I rescind my stand, or I'm no longer going to take the stance for GMO. Would you be comfortable he being the Agric Minister?
We would be very comfortable, because at the end of the day, Food Sovereignty Ghana is only in existence because we seek social justice and we seek the interests of the Ghanaian people at large. So we are looking out for you, your relatives, your friends, and the food that you're going to eat. Now, if Dr. Akoto came out with an open mind, so that there can be an open debate. Because factually, and I challenge every media house, if you hit the streets of Accra and you hit the streets of Ghana, you'll find that over 80-something% of Ghanaians have no clue what GMO is. So within the context of us saying that allow Ghanaians who will eat the food to be decision makers in this decision, don't you think that is right? That the people who eat this food should be allowed to determine whether they want GMO or not.
So if he does all that, you'll be comfortable with him as minister?
We would definitely be, because this would then be a progressive minister who realizes that Ghana, located at the center of the earth, rather should be concentrating on taking our comparative advantage, creating an organic regime. And we would then be informed by the same decisions that have informed Germany and France and Holland and Italy and Russia on moving away and banning GMO from being grown within their territorial boundaries. So if he wasn't indeed to change his position, this would be very, very, very welcome news for Ghana. And indeed, the head of the Ghana Export Promotion Authority has specifically said in the Daily Graphic last year that if Ghana went into GMO cropping and became known as a destination for GMO exports, it would kill our non-traditional export markets within Europe, because most of these countries already are showing a rise in demand for organic produce and non-GMO produce. So if Dr. Akoto was to come to the table with an open mind, ready to hear the aspirations of Ghanaians, because he has been elected and given the mandate by Nana Akufo-Addo, who is His Excellency now, and who was elected overwhelmingly by Ghanaians who wanted change. So we want to see a change in the process of engaging Ghanaians around the most important issue of food. I would like to point out that it is very sad, but not surprising, but very sad that the issue of food didn't make it into our electoral discussions. The issue of food was not discussed in any of our national debates.
But as Food Sovereignty Ghana, what did you come up to do? What was that one thing you did to protest?
Well, I think if you've monitored the news and you've monitored the press releases we put out, it is just that your media goes only as far as who wants to help you share it. But we have been very, very consistent in this position, and those who have followed food sovereignty, who have visited our website, who have followed our press releases will know that throughout the last 4 years of the Mahama regime, we have been constantly harping on this issue of needing to allow Ghanaians to take part in this issue. Now, I'd like to inform you of the kind of stakeholders who are involved in our coalition, because we have the Christian Council of Ghana, who has come out with their position against GMOs. We have the Catholic Bishop Conference. We have the General Agricultural Workers Union of the TUC. We have the Rastafari Council. We have the Vegetarian Association of Ghana. We have the Peasant Farmers Association. We have the Convention People's Party. So these are all groupings with key stakeholders. These are all groupings that deserve to be heard, that deserve to be given a chance.
And you've not been heard?
Well, we were seen by Parliament once, and there's been no further consultation since the Speaker puts the Plant Breeders Bill on hold. But if 80% of Ghanaians do not know about GMO, we are showing that something is wrong, that you're forcing down a type of food down the throats of Ghanaians, and they're unaware. So if they were as educated as the consumers in Germany and Holland and France and Italy, they would be able to make an informed decision. So a parent in Ghana who would have to make an informed decision if their child should eat genetically modified cowpeas or should eat the normal wache that's from the cowpea that we know, it would be to their advantage as a consumer. So these are the things that we're trying to point out, that Ghanaians have rights as much as the citizens of other countries that have recognized this have rights. And we are living in an age of information and technology. This information is out there for everyone to see. There's a lady called Madame Hilal Elva, and she's the UN Special Rapporteur on Food. This is not Food Sovereignty Ghana saying it. In her own words, that she cannot back GMOs because we are not aware of the long-term effects on human health and the environment. So these are red flags that are very important to pay attention to. Our own neighbor in Burkina Faso has dabbled in GM cotton for the past 5 years. Now, this year, they're phasing out GM cotton. Instead of planting 70% like they planted last year, they're planting 40% this year.
All right, Edwin, so is the issue of GMO the only reason why you're rating Dr. Akoto's performance as minority spokesperson on the Food and Agriculture Committee as poor?
Yes, I think his position on something that has... I think it is very fair, being that GMO is an irreversible move. I'd like to repeat again. Once you genetically modify a crop and insert the genes of another crop, you have changed that for good. You have made an irreversible change.
But I'm asking that, does a stance on the issue of GMO make his performance? I mean, does it allow you to rate his performance as poor? Because the Agric sector is made up of a lot of things.
Well, in the context, in the context that he's a legislator and he was voted by the people to represent their interests, and he was the minority spokesperson on agriculture, and representing let's say if MPP had more than half of the majority of half of this country, he was representing the aspirations of maybe, let's say, 13, 14, 15 million people. And he never voiced the concern of these 14, 15 million farmers and women. Does he not know that if farmers understood that they would have to buy these seeds every season, they would have voiced concern?
All right, Edwin, let me just put you on hold there, because the Ghana Agriculture Chamber of Commerce has actually lauded the nomination of Dr. Afriyie Akoto as the Agric Minister, and also the Ghana Agric Workers Union, very key stakeholders in the Agric sector, have also lauded his nomination. We'll be finding out from them whether or not they agree with Food Sovereignty Ghana's position, what they also have to say about this. So, you know, let's come back to what you were talking about the ratings of his performance. Have you considered other things that he may have done that could?
No, don't forget, like I said, this is not a personal judgment on him. It's nothing to do with his character or his past. We're talking about a specific issue on his stance on genetically modified organisms, which is going to have a very serious implication on the way forward in our agriculture. So we're basically saying that Ghana will either remain and try to go organic, or will continue to pursue this line of genetically modified agriculture at a time when all these countries I've mentioned have decided to go the other way. So we must ask ourselves, what informs the position of Germany and France and all these people? If you go to the German embassy today, this morning, not Food Sovereignty Ghana telling you, they will let you know that this is the position that we've taken on it based on these insights. So we want an open discussion on it. We don't like the idea that people try to make Food Sovereignty Ghana look like we are just harping on issues and being personal. We are raising red flags at an early stage. Like I said, I'd like you to do your own research on Burkina and find out what has happened in the past 5 years. They now have a lower quality of fiber, and they get less tonnage from the cotton they grow. Meanwhile, they were promised high yields from this, because this is what the companies do. Don't forget, genetically modified agriculture is profit-oriented. When the companies patent the seeds, it's for a reason, because they now own the technology.
All right, let me pause you here, Edwin, and let's get onto the phone lines and speak to the General Secretary of the Ghana Agric Workers Union, GAW, in the person of Edward Terewe. And Edward, the Ghana Agric Workers Union have actually lauded Dr. Afriyie Akoto's nomination as Agric Minister. Can you tell us why? Hello?
Hello.
Mr. Terewe, yes. If you can hear me, I'm saying that you have lauded the nomination of Dr. Afriyie Akoto as Agric Minister, and can you just share with us briefly why you've done that?
Well, thanks very much, and then let me also say good morning to your viewers and to all of you there. I think the current president, that is His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo, I mean, took time to brief Ghanaians one after the other why he appointed Mr. A, Madam A, or Mrs. A for a particular position. Now, some of them are not new to us. We, those in very key stakeholders in the economy, they are not new to us. If you come to Dr. Afriyie Akoto, he has been someone that we have worked with when they were in opposition. He's someone who has, by his own theoretical knowledge of the area, is so high. He has an impeccable knowledge of agriculture. I mean, even his theoretical knowledge and practical knowledge. And his commitment to agriculture is not in doubt. I would, at any point in time, stand for him, because he, as a person, has all that it takes to lead the Agric ministry. And, well, I don't know what the other reasons people have for not wanting him to, they think that he's not a suitable candidate. But I think for now.
All right, and Edward,
he's
let
the most
me just tell you why Food Sovereignty Ghana is opposing his nomination. For them, they think that he did not perform too well as the minority spokesperson on the Food and Agric Committee, and they're saying this because of his stance on GMOs. What do you say about that?
Well, I don't know what is his stand on GMO. If his stand on GMO is that he's for GMO, is that what Food Sovereignty is saying?
Yes.
Or he's against GMO?
He is for GMOs. And so Food Sovereignty says that for them, that alone would make them rate his performance as poor.
Well, it doesn't mean that if he stands for GMO and he comes to power, he's actually going to implement GMO. He cannot. Because there are different views on GMO. Some are for GMO. Even when you look at the scientific world, you know, our researchers in the CSR and across the academic institutions, there are varied views about the GMO. So if Akoto also has a view on GMO, what it means is that we, those who do not support the GMO, must not necessarily oppose his nomination. What we need to do is to make sure that he does not implement that. And of course, that does not necessarily represent the view of his government. You know, he cannot go and impose his personal views on the entire government. I believe the government is bigger than him. Governance also encompasses people like us who are not in direct governance. So I don't think that it is a sufficient reason to say that he should not head the Agric Ministry.
All right. All right, Edward, let me just speak Edwin's reaction to that. So, Edwin, you've heard Edward Karowe. He is the General Secretary of the Ghana Agric Workers Union. And this is what he has to say. He thinks that, I mean, Dr. Afriyie Akoto's stance on GMOs should not be a reason to say that he cannot manage the agric sector, or he should not be allowed to be the minister in charge of the agric sector. What's your reaction? I'm sure you heard what he had to say.
Yeah, I mean, I respectfully beg to differ, because this is the key stakeholder who's going to be in charge of decisions within the agricultural sector.
But like he rightly mentioned, he does not make the laws as an individual.
Of course not. But when you look at the key stakeholder in Joy FM, if the key stakeholder in Joy FM has a certain position, whether he doesn't make all decisions by himself, it will allow you to lend towards certain positions. And I'm saying this from the point of view of Ghana's interest, that if Ghana is at a crossroads right now, we either continue to increase our efficiency in organic agriculture, or we go further down this road of genetically modified agriculture. And we're saying that we already have the red flags to show across the world that this form of agriculture is not being preferred. If you look at the amount of organic food sales, you see that people are paying more money to buy food from organic stores. People are paying more money to buy organic produce. So this is reflective of the fact that people are recognizing that organic food, first of all, factually, is the only food that can heal the human body. And so the American Academy of Environmental Medicine only recommends non-GMO food for their patients. So we are speaking from the context of the health and safety of Ghanaians.
It's understandable, Edwin, but should his stance, and I keep asking this question, should his stance on GMOs be a benchmark for his, job as a Minister of Agric?
Well, this is like saying that, I don't want to get into using examples because it might not be the best example, but basically we're trying to explain that in thinking about a nation's welfare, you don't allow the chance for somebody who has already shown a penchant to be open to this idea which the whole world is moving away from. So once he's not opposed to it, and the truth about the GMO thing is it's an agenda which is being pushed by very strong forces.
But he has a right to his opinion.
He has a right to his opinion, but Ghanaians have a right to their opinion too.
And like Mr. Edward Karowe, rightly mentioned,
sure,
Dr. Akoto cannot push his personal, inclinations towards GMO on the people of Ghana.
Well, I beg to differ on that because, like we say, as we speak today, over 90% of Ghanaians have no idea about GMO.
So your concern
So
is about your concern is about educating the people of Ghana, not that the minister designate for Agric has a certain stance on GMO.
No, I'm trying to show you that the education of Ghanaians has a part to do with if you were treating GMOs properly through the protocols. We would have educated them instead of putting the cart before the horse. You don't bring a Bentley dealership into Ghana before you realize that until you have about 45 people who buy Bentleys in Ghana, and then it's feasible to have a Bentley dealership. If you bring GMO food into Ghana and now decide that you want to see if Ghanaians like it or not, you're putting the cart before the horse. And we are saying that if Ghanaians were allowed to participate in the decision-making process such that they knew the do's and don'ts of GMO, by now, I guarantee you, the majority of Ghanaian mothers and fathers, carpenters and priests and school children would not opt for GMO. So if he was a minority spokesperson on GMO and throughout his tenure, he had nothing negative to say about this genetically modified agriculture, which Ghanaians have a certain position on, then in the context of him representing...
But how do you know Ghanaians have a certain position? You just said that about 80% of Ghanaians do not even know what GMO is about.
Because we've worked in this field for about 3-4 years now. Mm-hmm. This is what we do every day. We speak to Ghanaians, we speak to farmers, we speak to shoe shine boys, and I task Joy FM to hit the streets with your camera and find out of 10 people, how many people understand or have even ever heard of GMO.
Okay, that's fair enough. You're saying that 80% of Ghanaians, according to your research, do not know what GMO is, and you're now saying that, I mean, Ghanaians seem to have a certain stance, but if they don't know, how can they have a stance on it?
No, because those who know, that's 15 or whatever percentage that know, as soon as they're engaged on what GMO means, as soon as they understand that it's been created in a lab, as soon as they understand that you must pour chemicals on it before it grows, because these seeds are herbicide tolerant and pesticide tolerant. That means that when you pour the chemical on it, the plant alone is able to tolerate it. Every other living thing around it dies. Now, what about you that consumes that plant? You even need to wear safety gear before you spray it, and then it's safe to eat. So if Ghanaians were able to understand all these things, there's no Ghanaian who would opt for that. And as a parliamentarian who is representing the aspirations of Ghanaians, we are speaking from that context, that if he's representing what the average Ghanaian mother and father on this Fanofa road would tell you, then he is not the right person to give a fair approach, to open the debate up. We would rather now hurry on with it. And we are saying that all the stakeholders I mentioned, from the Christian Council of Ghana, the Catholic Bishop Conference, and all these other stakeholders have come against GMO. The Pope, His Eminence, the Pope has come out against GMO. Honorable Nuhu Sharabutu, the Chief Imam, has come out against GMOs. So they must have an informed position. And like I keep saying, the countries that we follow for best practice on all other things, the Germanys, the Frances, the Italys, are not following GMO in the agricultural process. And I challenge Joy FM to visit some of these embassies in Accra so that you can hear from them on what has informed their decision not to do this in their countries, so that it doesn't look like Food Sovereignty Ghana is always wanting to stand in a position by themselves, but that we are raising red flags. I challenge you to see what is happening in Burkina Faso and see that the farmers in Burkina who are promised higher yields are suing Monsanto for about 200 and something million.
All right, Edwin, we have a reaction to your submission, and Kwame Ayim Edu is an intellectual property expert, an MP for Asante Achim Central. Good morning, sir. Thanks for your time. What exactly are your concerns?
Good morning, Zizi. I've met this gentleman you are hosting at the studio, but he's always confusing the GMO with plant variety bill.
Okay.
The GMO, there had been a law that had been passed on this. The procedure is to have a laboratory research and whatnot that they come out with these GMOs, the genetically modified food that he's talking about. It has nothing to do with plant variety. The plant variety is for a person coming out breeding a plant. And like all intellectual property rights, when a person comes out with a creation, the person is protected. These GMOs, he's talking about to the extent of saying that a minister designate must not be approved. I think this is below the belt because if he has taken a stand, people are talking about this GMOs and whatnot. Fine. If you go to the other areas in Europe and whatnot, they have GMOs on the shelf. They have genetically modified food on the shelf. Then they have organic food on the shelf. So you go in and choose what you want. Nobody is saying that is being imposed on Ghanaians.
Okay.
This idea was brought to Parliament, and then Parliament, the Speaker had to say that we had to go into this, the complaints that they were making. We've gone into that, and there is a distinction between the plant variety, somebody coming out improving a plant, and the GMOs that he's talking about.
All right,
so
Mr. Entry,
stop confusing Ghanaians and throwing that.
All right, we understand that, but for him, he's saying that as the minority spokesperson on the Food and Agric Committee, Dr. Afriyie Akoto, he thinks they don't do a good job in terms of educating the Ghanaian people or pushing for the education of the Ghanaian people on what GMOs really are.
That's where I have a problem I have a problem with him, because that thing came up. Hello?
I can hear you, sir. Please go ahead.
Right. That issue, the GMOs, I can't recollect exactly, but there is an act on that. When the act was being passed, when it was a bill, we never heard anybody speak against GMO until there was a plant varieties bill. Now, when the plant varieties bill comes up, they rather come up with an argument that should have been brought when we were dealing with the GMO. That had been passed. You can give him my personal contact number. When he is out of the studio, I would liaise with him and give him the act that talks about this GMO, so that if they want to go and review that act, that's a different ball game.
All right, Mr.
Making a law is for the whole country.
Exactly. I understood, but he has a reaction to what you've been saying so far. Edwin?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I with all due respect to the Honourable, I have not mentioned the word Plant Breeders Bill this morning.
No, you actually did. You mentioned it. Yes, you mentioned
but I have not been confusing the two. I'm very well aware that the Plant Breeders Bill is to encourage intellectual property, but you see, the thing with the Plant Breeders Bill is we raise objections about the way in which it has been presented. If you look at Clause 23, for instance, in Clause 23, the Plant Breeders Bill almost cedes the sovereignty of the Constitution of Ghana to any plant breeder. It actually literally says that the Constitution of Ghana will not be able to hold a breeder responsible if something goes wrong. This is not what Food Sovereignty Ghana is saying. This is what is in the documents that Honourable will have on his desk. If you look at Clause 58, Clause 58 almost makes it illegal for farmers to save seeds. This goes contrary to the International Treaty on Plant Genetic Resources, where farmers are guaranteed the right to save seeds and save seeds for next season. So I'm not confusing the two, but what we are pointing out is that the Plant Breeders Bill is opening the way for foreign multinational seed companies to come in and control our seeds. Because what we are being told is that the Plant Breeders Bill is to encourage innovation on the Ghanaian market. I'd like to understand where in Ghana such GMO manufacture is taking place, and name me a Ghanaian scientist who has been developing GMOs such that we are going to protect his creations with this Plant Breeders Bill. This is rather for the Monsantos and the big multinationals who are seed manufacturers, who have the ability and the resources to move into the country and control the seeds. This is a profit-oriented business, and that's why the seeds are patented, because they are seen as the intellectual property. Now, what Food Sovereignty Ghana is saying is that Ghana must develop its own, what we call a sui generis system of a plant variety protection one. Currently, the one that we have is almost a copy and paste of a very harsh plant variety protection system which is in place. And Ghana deserves the right under the WTO rules to create its own version of a plant variety protection bill.
All right.
This has almost been copied and pasted from outside. And so otherwise you wouldn't have a clause that almost cedes the sovereignty of your constitution in Clause 23, and in 58 almost illegalizes the saving of seeds by farmers.
Mr. Nyamadu.
Hello, Sisi. The one correction. The plant variety bill only looks at a breeder that commercializes a product that he has created, not an individual to say that an individual farmer cannot preserve his seeds and whatnot is not right. Neither can we say that when somebody comes out with his or her creation, another person must ride on the person's back without compensation to that person. So if he's saying that, if he's going to that extent that the argument they are making, then copyright would not be.
He still doesn't seem to agree with you there, and he has a quick reaction here in the studio, Edwin.
We are not against.
Yes, but what I want to correct is that they must stop actually seeing GMOs as the plant variety bill. They are two different things.
All right.
And Dr. Akoto taking a position on GMOs, probably he also needs to educate himself as to why the man is saying that we cannot continue to live the way we live. We must actually improve upon some products. And I don't think a plant GMO is a poison, as he would want Ghanaians to believe. That's not correct.
Mr. Karoe, Edward Karoe, you are the General Secretary of the Ghana Agric Workers Union, and you've been listening to this conversation. Do you have any reactions?
Well, my point here is this. Let me, as a union of workers and then a concern about the welfare of the Ghanaians, we strongly opposed to GMO. And we have been at the forefront of this campaign, and we will, at any time, today and tomorrow, kick against the promotion of GMO in this country. That's why I'm saying that the work of the minister is not limited to only the GMO. There's so much that needs to be done for agriculture. It needs to be restructured. We need innovation. We need broader policies to address even the GMO concerns. We need to know the role that agriculture will play in the future development of this country. And that will inform us as to how to confront even the GMO threat.
Right.
So I want to just make the point clear that, please, as a union, we are strongly opposed to GMO. But the work of the Minister for Agriculture is not limited to only GMO.
Great.
The gentleman who is being appointed to head the ministry will have to work with other stakeholders, and all of us inclusive, and with other people. And I believe that he's not going there to impose his personal conviction on Ghanaians. We will not, even his government will not agree to that, and I believe all of us will not accept that. So we wish him well, and we hope that he would recognize the role of stakeholders in transforming agriculture to be the base for the economic transformation of this country.
Right. Thank you very much. Edward Karoe is the General Secretary of the Ghana Agric Workers Union. So now, briefly, you know, as you give your final words, I would just like you to include the big question to your opposition. So what? So what are you hoping to achieve with your opposition? So what exactly do you want President Akufo-Addo to do? You've come out to oppose this. So that what? Well,
we believe that President Akufo-Addo is a listening president. That's how he came to power, because people listened to what he offered. And I don't think any president in his right mind would want to stand in opposition to what the majority of his people think and feel. And from the experiences we've interacted with Ghanaians, mothers, fathers, we understand that those who understand GMO reject it.
Right.
And so those who have been elected to represent our positions in parliament must do so.
Right.
And in Ghana, the truth is that we waste food. Food rots all over Ghana. And if we could pay attention to roads and post-harvest law systems like warehouses, we wouldn't even need to think about GMO. We even have food that we don't know is food, in alefu and dandelion and all sorts of food.
All right, Edward, so now between now and when Dr. Afriyie Akoto goes to sit before the vetting committee in Parliament, if President Akufo-Addo does not act on what you expect him to act on, are you willing to send your memorandum to the vetting committee? Is this something you're thinking about?
Oh, definitely. Like I said, we are not doing this for any personal reasons. We're doing this because we believe that it is in the interest of the general Ghanaian population. And so if it requires that we go to Parliament, if it requires that we seek any other legal means to get this point across. It is for Ghanaians that we do this, in the same interest that other countries have done this. So the way the Germans have done this, and France and Italy, we want Ghanaian children to be just as good. Why should a Ghanaian child have to eat GMO when a German child doesn't have to eat GMO?
And lastly, if he's approved as the Agric Minister,
if he's approved as the Agric Minister, it would send two messages. One, it would send a message that the aspirations of the Ghanaian people are not too important when it comes to politics, and two, that Ghana is going to be going... But
you don't speak for the Ghanaian people, do you?
No, when we speak, when I say Ghanaian people, I'm talking about all the people we've interacted with, and I continue to challenge your media house. Please hit the streets so that you can also help us on this issue, that it won't only be us speaking, that you understand what Ghanaians who understand GMO feel. All
right, thank you very much, Edwin Kwekwando-Bafo. He's a Communications Director of Food Sovereignty Ghana, and they're opposing the nomination of Dr. Afriyie Akoto as a Agric Minister. And let's go now to MP for Asante Achim Central, Kwame Nyimado, for your final words, sir.
Right. In the argument arguing against the fact that Dr. Akoto has been nominated because he believes in something that they don't believe in, I think they are hitting below the belt. They must probably have to find out why. I don't think GMOs, Ghanaians are well educated. So to say that most Ghanaians are holding to that view, that is not correct. Again, if you go to Europe, the GMOs, it's there anyway. They have it on the shelf, and they tell you that these ones are organic. If you want, you go in for that. There may be some advantages over having GMOs. That's not what we are talking about now.
All right.
There is the opportunity, but I would want us to draw a line between the GMOs
and the plant varieties.
Bill that would be for
All right.
Parliament.
Thank you very much, Honourable. We really appreciate your time, but we'll have to end it here. We'll have this conversation later. So I've been having a conversation with the Communications Director of Food Sovereignty Ghana, Edwin Kwekwando-Bafo. He was in the studio, and they are opposing the nomination of Dr. Afriyie Akoto as the Agric Minister. For them, his stance on GMO is the reason why they are opposing his nomination. We also had on the phone lines the General Secretary of the Ghana Agric Workers Union in the person of Edward Karowe, and he also thinks that the work of a minister goes beyond his stance on GMO. So for them, they are against GMO as Ghana Agric Workers Union, but they believe that the work of a minister goes beyond his stance on GMOs. And then, just like you heard, I spoke to Kwame Nyimado, intellectual property expert and MP for Asante Achim Central, who also thinks that to actually oppose the nomination of Dr. Afriyie Akoto because of his stance on GMO is way below the belt. And like he mentioned in his wrap-up, we shouldn't confuse the two different bills on GMO and plant breeders. We'll take a quick break right now. We'll be back with more.